Adlet was an ugly fatso child who watched a demon sacrifice his family at a young age, but managed to escape so he could suffer for the rest of his miserable life. For the next 3 years, he would spend every day starving as he searched for God, wishing to become the strongest man alive. But when God heard his wish, he told him to give up on his worthless dead family, and that he will always be useless for the rest of his life. However, Adlet began crying, saying that he didn't deserve to keep living when everyone else was killed. But after hearing those words, God kicked him with enough force to break his ribcage, launching him back onto the ground. As he struggled to breathe, God screamed at him to smile before kicking him once again, saying that the only way to get stronger is to smile in the face of all the pain. So God kept beating him up, until Adlet was able to smile in the face of death. Throughout the years, he began creating secret weapons to break the laws of physics, and trained until his bones broke, so that one day, he would become one of the 6 heroes that were chosen by the goddess of war, and obtain the power to defeat the demon god when he revived. 4 million years into the future, the tournament for the strongest warrior was about to begin, and the king of the world announced the 2 demigods that would be fighting before the goddess of war. The winner of this duel would get to sleep with the princess Nashitania, but as he continued speaking, Adlet entered the duel, saying he was the strongest man in the world. However, no one knew his ugly ass, so he offered to challenge both of them at the same time. Neither of the demigods wanted to waste their energy, but as the guards began surrounding him, Adlet began throwing his secret darts, knocking all of them down within 2 seconds. The demigods thought he was a worthy opponent, and attempted to attack him, but Adlet used his superior acrobatics to dodge all of their blows, and evaded their ground-breaking strikes before throwing a container of gasoline onto them. From underneath his vest, he showed hundreds of grenades, and threw them around to create a blinding fog around them. They thought he was a magician, but as he ran closer to strike them down, the air demigod knocked his sword away. But this was all part of his trap to ignite the gasoline on his face. While he was blinded, he broke his arm and knocked him down, crushing his spine. At the same time, the bear demigod was unable to walk from the poisonous spikes he had planted, so before everyone, he announced that he was Adlet Mayer, the strongest man in the world. He asked the goddess if she saw his display to make him one of the chosen heroes, but the demigod tackled him down, and the entire crowd began throwing their food at him. Later that day, Adlet's worthless face was thrown into a jail cell, but before he knew it, a hot blonde girl with massive cannons approached him, saying the way he handled his sword unleashed her floodgates. She begged to feel his sword, but he thought that her face was disgusting, so he shook her hand, and she asked him how he became this powerful. As he told her his depressing life story, he saw her clapping, but the only thing he wanted to be clapping were her nice massive teeth. However, she wondered why he kept saying he was the strongest man in the world, so he revealed that he needs to be chosen as one of the 6 brave flowers, and defeat the demon god who will revive soon. Just then, he realized that a maid shouldn't be able to sneak into a prison, and thought her worthless body looked just like the princess's, but she ran away as soon as he said that, and thought he was extremely perceptive. The following morning, the king sentenced him to execution by starvation, and he was brought to an underground cell where he would spend his last few days. However, he managed to survive for 2 months by eating the animal shit the guards would throw for him, and drinking the rainwater. By the time 3 months passed, his arm was finally healed, and he thought it was time to think of an escape plan. That same night, as all the citizens were living their lives normally, the sky blazed a red color, and the demon god was finally reborn. Seeing that red hue, the goddess of war appeared before Adlet, and pierced his skin. When he woke up, he felt a burning sensation on his hand, and saw the flower crest, signifying that he was chosen as one of the 6 heroes. When he realized this was what his entire life's led up to, he screamed at the guards to let him free. But the hot blonde girl appeared once again, introducing herself as the Princess Nashitania, and exposing her massive cannons to show her crest. After he showed his flower back, she activated the abilities of her weapon, disintegrating his blade into hundreds of mystical daggers, and using them to open the prison cell. She told him to hurry, and after escaping, Nashitania pushed the demigod into the cell, and they began running away together. After escaping the bridge, he saw they would be riding 2 horses. On the exit gate, their horses leaped over all the soldiers, and they dove deep into the forests. For the next few days, they would begin heading towards the demon god's island, where they were going to meet the rest of the 6 braves. A few hours later, they arrived at Adlet's old dump, and he packed up his belongings, ready for the trip. Before long, they began their journey, and they realized that they were not being pursued by anyone. When they arrived at a new town, Nashitanya thought it was beautiful, as this was her first time outside her city, so she decided to try a new kind of fruit and even took a carrot. As she peeled the fruits in an instant, she decided to reveal her impressive magic to Adlet, and he realized that this was the power of the Saint of Blades. Deciding to reveal more of her skills, Nashitanya cast her blades at him, but Adlet narrowly evaded them all, and smacked off another before screaming at her to return to her senses. That night, as they rested by the fire, Adlet told Nashitanya that they still have a few more days before arriving at the land of howling demons. A few days later, as they entered a new territory, they spotted several villagers that were leaving for a new city. So Adlet told Nashitanya to keep her eyes peeled, afraid they would be attacked by enemies who were looking to eliminate all the braves before they were united. Hearing these words, Nashitanya became afraid, wondering if she would survive in a battle. As they passed through the forest, they spotted a family that were trying to escape from the village. Nashitanya wondered why they were hurrying away, so the lady told her that the village was under attack from fiends, which were ruthless monsters that descended from the demon god. At once, Adlet began charging towards the village, wondering if it was a trap to lure them out. Outside the forest, ugly monsters began attacking the people and knocked a man to the ground. As Adlet started running towards the monsters, he offered to distract them and told Nashitanya to finish them off. So he spewed liquid on them and ignited a flame in that instant. And as they burned, Nashitanya annihilated them immediately. At once, he hurried off again and blew a whistle that drew their attention. As he slayed one, he dodged others, but Nashitanya killed them instantly. The other fiends noticed her presence and charged at her, but Adlet managed to slay one of them, allowing her to eliminate the beast. With all the monsters dead, Adlet told her that he was pleased with her skills, and she told him that she would always offer him her support. Realizing the villagers were safe, Adlet wondered if there was anyone else left, so a woman told him that a traveling girl was abandoned in the village, and she thought that the fiends would devour her. Deciding to rescue her, Adlet tried to leave for the village, but Nashitanya stopped him, and began saying that they could not save everyone, but were better off heading to their destination. Adlet thought her words made sense, but immediately rode off, telling her that he would save everyone. As she tried following him, more fiends appeared, and the people started running away. Inside the village, Adlet realized that all the houses had been destroyed, and as he noticed a bullet inside a monster, he discovered that it was shot with gunpowder and thought the traveling girl must have killed it. Just then, he spotted her in the village and noticed that she had rescued a puppy, and thought that she was the most beautiful girl he'd ever seen. As she noticed Adlet, she wondered if his horrendous face was from a botched plastic surgery, and told him to scram before she isekai'd his ugly ass. Afraid she meant business, Adlet decided to introduce himself, saying that he was one of the 6 braves. She told him that her name was Flamey, but blasted a shot just past him. Luckily, he managed to control his horse, and she grew back her bullet instantly, reloading another shot. She wondered if he came to kill her, but he tried explaining that they were on the same team. Even so, she would not believe his words, thinking that no truth could possibly come from his worthless, disgusting mouth. On the other hand, a knight appeared before Nashitanya, having arrived from her city. He was Goldoff, and he told her that he was chosen to be one of the braves, as he revealed his crest to her. He told her that he came to protect her, and said that he had found the girl who had killed several brave warriors. Nashitanya wondered who she was, so he revealed a bullet, and said that the killer's name was Flamey. At the same time, Flamey called Adlet a disgusting, useless piece of shit for entering the city's ritual tournament, and said that he deserves to have his empty brains blown out for his crime. Adlet tried telling her that he uses every weapon to his own advantage, but she thought that it made him even more of a coward. She told him that she was the Saint of Gunpowder, and that she was heading off on her own to fight the demon god, telling him to stay far away. As she fired a shot to rile the horse, she ran off immediately. At that instant, Adlet loaded the horse and sent it away before chasing after the girl. As he ran through the forest, wondering where she went, he noticed her trail and began following it. Shortly, he heard a rustling of leaves and thought she was hiding in the tree. However, he soon discovered that she had hung 2 rocks as a distraction and decided to climb up the tree. As he began spying with his telescope, he noticed her in the bushes, and she wondered how he managed to find her. She began running even faster, thinking she had escaped, but Adlet appeared before her eyes, and she wondered if he was a wizard. Even so, she decided to aim her gun, and told him to get his ugly face out of her sight, but he told her that she needs him, as she couldn't kill the demon god on her own. However, she wasn't interested in his crypto rug pull, and told him that she could surely blow up his teeth, and that the other Braves would also kill her if she tries to team up with them. Adlet thought her words made no sense, but she told him that his face being that ugly made no sense.
Yo, that one there was a violation. Personally, I wouldn't have it.
After getting clapped, Adlet decided to sheath his sword, so Flamey told him to go find a lake to drown himself in, and began running off. However, the worthless face would not quit, and threw an explosive at her, blinding her vision with smoke. As he stole her bag, he declared himself her new traveling companion, but she wondered what disgusting hole he crawled out of. Just then, he started backing away, and said that he would save her if the other Braves tried to kill her. She tried aiming at him as he left, but decided to spare his life, afraid of losing her bullets if he survived, and began to follow him. Meanwhile, Nashitanya and Goldov spotted a fiend, and he realized that he could not cut through it. Nashitanya readied several spikes to terminate it, but it managed to slow down, and she thought she was screwed. Luckily, Goldov nailed it to the ground in an instant. As the spikes vanished, a new monster appeared before her, and she froze up in shock, but Goldov isekai'd it with a powerful strike. Just then, they spotted Adlet's horse, and Goldov discovered the letter on it. As Nashitanya read it, she realized that it was from Adlet, who was telling her to continue towards the land of howling demons without her. At the same time, Adlet and Flamey were walking through the forest, and Adlet was determined to remain by her side. However, she told him that they would kill each other eventually, and said that it was her destiny to kill the demon god. Even so, her words made no sense to Adlet, and he told her that they need the others. As they spotted the land of howling demons in the distance, Adlet thought the people were probably in danger, and hurried off at once. Before long, they arrived at the fortress, and he returned Flamey's bag to her. As he screamed at the gates, a group of security appeared, demanding to know who he was. So he introduced himself, and said that he was one of the chosen Braves. One security told him that 2 other Braves had arrived a few days ago, but had left for the temple. At that instant, the gates opened, and the commander welcomed them to the guard post. As they headed out, he told them that several soldiers had been slain by the fiends, and that only a few survivors were left. Inside the fortress, he told them that the fiends had invaded their continent in hopes of killing the Braves before the demon god was slain, and that their best bet was to seal up the fiends within the forest with a phantasmal barrier created by the former king. He told them that the barrier could be activated from inside the temple, which was secured with defensive walls that was created by the Saint of Salt, and could never be destroyed by the monsters. He said that once all the Braves were gathered together, one warrior would activate the barrier inside the temple, sealing up the fiends forever. However, if they failed to accomplish this goal, they would all be annihilated by the demon god. Adlet thought it made perfect sense, but wondered if the other Braves would truly be brave enough to face the demon god. As the commander revealed an altar, he told them that a replica was set up inside the temple, and that they must thrust a sword inside the dais to activate the barrier. Adlet decided to give it a try, and thought he had it figured out. So after a few hours, they decided to leave the fortress, and began heading for the temple. Adlet wondered if Nashitanya had reached the temple already, and hoped they could protect Flamey together. However, Flamey was certain that they would try to eliminate her, and told Adlet to get his worthless brain out of his ass. Even so, Adlet chose to remain a moron, and tried telling her that he would never leave her side. At an instant, he pushed her aside, saving her from a spear, and as she managed to balance herself, she aimed her gun and fired at Nashitanya, destroying her blades instantly. Nashitanya screamed at Adlet to escape, but he tackled Goldov before he could slay the girl. Immediately, Nashitanya cast tiny lights that transformed into large spikes, but Flamey managed to fly over them, and blasted her shield before hiding away. Adlet managed to restrain Goldov, and tried screaming for the girls to stop attacking each other, but Nashitanya prepared a new defense immediately. Having seen enough, Adler drew his sword, but Goldov smacked him out of the way, so he cast dust at him to block his vision. As Flamey tried blasting Goldov straight to the afterlife, Adlet threw a rock at her, causing her to lose her target. Immediately, she readied another shot, aiming at Nashitanya, but Adlet commanded them to stop, saying that Flamey was not their enemy, but was actually one of them. To prove it was true, he decided to reveal her crest, and wondered why they had attacked her in the first place. Nashitanya revealed that she was the renowned killer who was executing brave fighters from different cities. So Flamey confessed that she was truly the killer, and that she intends to kill every one of the Braves. As Adlet wondered why she killed the fighters, she told him that it was the quickest way to awaken the demon god. Goldov thought she deserves to be executed for her confession, and Nashitanya prepared to end her, but Adlet stood in the way to protect her. He began saying that she couldn't possibly be their enemy since she was one of them, and thought that she must have a reason for trying to revive the demon god. Flamey told him that she does, and the ugly moron said that he was surely on her side, and would support her if Nashitanya continued with her attacks. Goldov thought the moron was better off dead anyway, and prepared to give him a quick ending, but Nashitanya decided to surrender, and caused her spears to vanish. A few minutes later, Adlet suggested that they continue towards the temple, so they decided to leave. Inside the forest, they noticed large birds in the sky, so Adlet looked with his telescope and discovered that they were actually flying monsters. Just then, he realized they were dropping explosives inside the forest. Afraid they would be caught in the explosion, they started running away. However, they soon discovered an army of fiends before them, and Adlet thought they were trying to slow them down. At Nashitanya's command, Goldov hurried forward and slayed the first monster before destroying a second and splitting another. As a great beast appeared before him, it commanded the others to annihilate them, so Goldov donned his helmet, but large spikes destroyed them all in that instant. More fiends began charging at them, but Flamey eliminated one and Nashitanya destroyed another. At the same time, Goldov sliced off several heads, and Adlet killed another monster. Realizing the fiends were endless, Nashitanya told Adlet to head for the temple, killing the monster before him. So Adlet hurried away, rushing past the monsters as they were slain one after another. As he appeared before the temple, he noticed a wounded lady, but she told him to hurry inside and activate the barrier. So he rushed to the door and tried to open it, but realized that it was impossible with his weak, worthless hands. Without hesitating, he set explosives on the door and ignited it before hurrying away. As it blew up, the doors finally opened and revealed a dark corridor. Adlet thought monsters may be lurking in the darkness and drew his sword, but two knights began charging at him. In an instant, he slayed them both, but realized they were merely empty armor. Before his eyes, the lady transformed into a fiend and ran off before he could slay it. And at that moment, a fog began appearing around the forest, and Adlet wondered who activated the barrier, but decided to head inside anyway. As he arrived at the altar, he realized that the sword had been thrust into the dais and wondered who snuck inside. Just then, the others rushed in, wondering why he activated the barrier. Adlet told them that he found it activated, but had no idea who it was. Afraid they've been sealed inside the temple, Goldov decided to deactivate the barrier. However, as he pulled out the sword, they realized that the fog was not clearing. Adlet thought he knew the solution, and tried spilling his blood over the dais like the last saint of salt had done. Even so, the fog still wouldn't clear. At the realization that they could be stuck here forever, Nashitanya snatched the sword and began screaming for the barrier to be lifted. But Flamey thought it was a mere waste of time. Desperate for a miracle, she began swinging the sword, nearly splitting up the dais. But Flamey caught her and told her to calm the f*** down. Just then, a girl appeared from the darkness, wondering why they were disturbing her peace. Adlet wondered who she was, so she introduced herself as Chamot and said that she was the Saint of Swamps and had been chosen as one of the braves. Adlet told her that he was the strongest man in the world and tried impressing her with his crest, but she told him that he was weaker than a straw. As she suggested that they execute Flamey for her crimes, the girl aimed her gun instantly, but Nashitanya stopped Chamot from activating her powers. At that moment, another girl appeared before them and introduced herself as Mora, saying that she was the Saint of Mountains who had first arrived at the temple. After a moment, she revealed that there was an intruder amongst them, and a moron even more worthless than Adlet entered the temple, calling himself another chosen brave. This made no sense to the group, seeing as there were 7 of them who were chosen as braves. Mora wondered who the fake one was, so Adlet suggested that they all revealed their crest. So one by one, they began proving that they were an original. Several centuries ago, the saint of a single flower had split her powers into 6 pieces for each brave to bear 1 piece. And over the years, only 6 braves were ever chosen to battle the demon god every time he awakened. Adlet wondered if the saint had decided to choose 7 warriors rather than the usual 6, but Mora thought it was impossible, and Hans said that one of them was surely fake. A few hours later, Adlet and Hans began marking around the temple, wondering if there was a way out of the fog. After ending up at the same spot, Adlet started moving ropes around the trees, and Hans began marking the ground. However, they returned to the very start, and they realized that there was no hope of ever getting out of the barrier. So they returned to the temple, and Adlet told Nashitanya that their only hope of ever leaving was to remove the fog. Just then, he noticed that Flamey was chained up, but she told him to keep his disgusting eyes to himself. When he wondered if there was another way out of the forest, Mora told them that the Book of Divine Words revealed no new solution as to how they could remove the barrier. She said that the barrier could only be removed by the same person who activated it, but thought that killing him would equally cancel the fog. Hearing these words, Adlet realized that only a human could have activated the fog, and began saying that one of them was surely a mole for the demon god. Tiamat thought that Flamey was probably the one, and suggested that they execute her immediately. However, Adlet stood in her way, saying that Flamey was innocent. So Mora suggested that they introduce themselves and explain their early lives, thinking they may discover the mole through everyone's confession. Deciding to go first, Adlet climbed up to the altar. As he introduced himself, he began saying a bunch of nonsense that made everyone wonder how he was ever chosen to be one of the 6 braves in the first place. When he was done, they started taking the stage one after another, revealing their own side of the story, until it was Flamey's turn. As Mora removed her eye patch, they discovered that she once had a horn on her head. So she began telling them that her father was a human, but that her mother was a fiend, and soon revealed her strange eye. She said that she was born to be a puppet for the demon god, and had obtained the power of the saint after her fiend mother abducted several people, and forced them to build a shrine for the demon. She had always thought that this was the right thing to do, and had left the shrine in hopes of reviving the demon god. However, Mora had heard enough, and demanded to know why she decided to switch sides. But Adlet came to her defense, and began saying that she was on a revenge mission to eliminate the demon god and screw up the fiends forever. Since she was only half human, Adlet thought she couldn't have possibly activated the barrier, and said that she was definitely innocent. However, Hans thought she was the opposite, and suggested that they terminate her already. He said that only humans could enter the temple, and since Flamey was half human, she could perform the same duties as the rest of them, and could even support the monsters. As Flamey denied the claims, she said that Mora was probably the fake, as she considered her earlier confession a useless little lie. Hearing these words, Adlet realized that it was only a matter of time before he was considered a suspect, but hoped he could save Flamey from execution. Just then, Tiamat began saying that Flamey was the fake, and that killing her would lift the fog. However, Hans told them that she was probably innocent, and said that Adlet was surely the mole they were looking for. He said that Flamey would have never appeared at the temple if she was not a chosen brave, knowing already that the other braves would try to kill her for her crimes. On the other hand, he thought that Adlet was too confident in himself and considered him a suspect. Flamey thought his words made sense, and said that he was probably working for the demon god, and had merely used her as a cover to draw less attention to himself. The others agreed that Flamey was innocent, but Tiamat was disappointed that she wouldn't get to kill the girl. As Nashitania nearly passed out, Adlet noticed that Goldov was worried about her, but Mora demanded to know how the barrier was opened. Hoping to prove his innocence, Adlet began revealing everything that happened, and told them that the fog had mysteriously appeared after he opened the door with explosives. He thought that someone must have snuck inside when he tried to slay the monster outside, but had no idea who it could be. Nashitania thought he was telling the truth, and told him that she was on his side, and would defend him no matter what. At that moment, Hans began saying that Adlet was surely the fake, as he wondered how the sword mysteriously stabbed the dais on its own. He said that the doors of the temple could never be closed once they were open, and that it was impossible for anyone to sneak inside before Adlet arrived. With these words, everyone thought Adlet was the fake after all, and Hans told him that they would execute him for his betrayal. Desperate to prove his innocence, Adlet began saying that one of them must have dug a hole into the temple, and escaped as soon as he opened the door. But Mora told him that the knights that attacked him were created to slay the very first person that tried entering the temple without the key. Even so, Adlet would not accept, and began saying that the other saints could have entered the temple before he arrived. But Mora thought he was making bullshit excuses, and reminded him that the doors could never be shut once it was opened. At that moment, Hans drew his blade, and Tiamat was ready to strike him down, but Mora commanded them to withdraw. However, Nashitania wondered why Adlet was taken for a suspect, so Hans revealed that Adlet was the first person to enter the temple, and he thought that Adlet's horrendous face certainly looks like the culprit. But Nashitania would still not accept, and tried asking Flamey to defend him, but the girl could care less, and said that Adlet was surely responsible for everything he was being accused of. At that moment, Adlet realized that he was being set up, and tried asking for Nashitania's support, but Mora told the others to pass their judgment. Hans thought that Adlet deserves a quick death, and suggested that they slice him up and see what his arteries look like. Chamat thought his words made perfect sense, and Flamey revealed that she couldn't possibly care less if his useless face was smashed in. This betrayal stung Adlet harder than a bee, and Goldov thought he was far too ugly to be spared. In an instant, he charged forward, sending Flamey into the wall and nearly slicing Adlet's head off. Hands tried to stab him, but he threw a smoke bomb that blinded their vision, allowing him to stick Flamey with a poison. As the light disappeared, he threatened to isekai her before their eyes, and Nashatanya thought he was truly the mole. However, Adlet was only concerned for his survival and commanded Hands to get out of his f***ing way. And as he left, Adlet threw another smoke bomb, blinding their vision once more before running away. However, Hands managed to throw a dagger into his back, slowing him down with the injury. So Mora and Chamat ran after him, but they realized that he had laid spikes all over the floor, and they watched him disappear into the fog. Inside the forest, Adlet continued hurrying as far away as he could, realizing there was no turning back now. As he grew too exhausted to continue, he tried removing the dagger, afraid that Flamey would soon regain consciousness, but he passed out at that instant. That night, Mora decided to give up their search, so they joined the others at the temple. As they arrived, Chamat revealed that they found no traces of Adlet, and Nashatanya wondered why he had betrayed them. But at the same time, Adlet was still unconscious in the forest, and in his memories, he tried attacking his friend, but the boy beat his ass to the ground, and told him that he was slower than his 90-year-old grandma. He told him that the only way to survive was to grow stronger, and said that it was their only hope to protect their village. However, at his home that evening, Adlet told his sister that his only desire was to continue picking up mushrooms just like his useless father, before he died. However, a few months later, after their village was destroyed by the fiends, Adlet appeared before God, telling him that he wants to become the strongest man in the world, and eliminate all the fiends from the earth. God thought he was a worthless kid, and told him to try surviving on his own. But Adlet began telling him that he was entirely useless staying alive, and may be better off dead anyway. So the man kicked him away and told him to smile. He said that the only way to truly become strong was to be happy even when he was entirely hopeless. To prove his determination, Adlet forced a smile out of his horrendous face, and soon woke up to discover that he had been patched up, and Flamey told him that she had saved him. When he wondered why she did so, she told him that she only considers him a suspect, but was waiting to see if a new suspect would appear. Adlet tried telling her that he was truly a chosen brave, but she told him that his lies were even worse than his face. As he noticed that she was cold, he decided to light a fire, but the wood would not burn, so Flamey cast a spell, causing it to burn instantly. Hoping to prove his innocence, Adlet began telling her that the mole was probably supported by a new enemy, who must have snuck into the temple to activate the barrier during their battle with the fiends. He told her that it was a thought-out plan to make him take the blame, and was almost certain that the mole's accomplice was hiding somewhere inside the forest. For the monsters that appeared in the forest, he thought they were merely a trap to lure him to the temple, so that he would be framed and executed. However, Flamey would not believe his words, and told him that his useless face was responsible. As Adlet remembered his master's words, he became certain that he could prove his innocence, and said that he would not surrender. Touched by his determination, Flamey wondered why he wished to become one of the chosen braves in the first place, seeing as he was weaker than everyone else. Adlet thought she was right, and decided to tell her his story. Several years ago, after his master accepted to train him, he realized that the old man was a weirdo who always hid inside the mountains, creating new weapons to eliminate the fiends. He trained him every day and forced him to study every night, even teaching him to make secret weapons. And all of this training strengthened his desire to become the strongest man in the world. Flamey wondered why he decided to train in the first place, realizing he must have surely been motivated by something. So Adlet decided to reveal his past. When he was younger, they noticed a fiend entering their village. His friend had tried to fight it, but he managed to restrain him. And as the monster appeared before their eyes, it demanded to speak with the village elder. But by the following morning, the fiend had vanished from the village. But the elder began telling the people that the safest place to live was in the land of howling demons, where they would be ruled by the demon god. However, a few people decided to turn down the offer, and Adlet had lost his family while trying to escape. These memories made him determined to become strong, and he told her that he would grow even stronger because he has something to believe in. Hearing these words, Flamey told him that she was actually jealous of his determination, and said that she has nothing to hope for. As she began to leave, she started telling him her own sob story, She said that her fiend mother had given her the saint's power after she was born and had made her a Terminator. So to please her mother, she began eliminating every single fighter that could threaten the demon god, until her own mother tried to kill her. Her betrayal stung her, and she thought the best way to get even was to eliminate the demon god. This was her determination, and she thought it was the only way to bring peace into her soul. With Adlet believing every single word, she wondered why he wasn't taking her for a trickster, and thought he was surely gullible. However, Adlet could read beyond her words, and told her that they were the same, and were both driven by the pain of their past. Even so, she thought he was too useless to deserve her company, and said that she would return to the temple. As she summoned gunpowder, she told him to throw it on the ground whenever he needs her help, but said that they might kill each other the next time they meet, and began heading into the darkness. At the same time in the forest, Mora and Goldov spotted her walking out of the fog, and she demanded to know if Adlet was alive. Flamey told her that he survived, and had escaped before she could capture him, so Mora thought she was telling the truth, and told her to rest inside the temple. The following morning, Mora decided to tell everyone that Flamey was to be considered one of them, since Adlet was believed to be the mole. However, Hans thought she was a lying sack of shit, and said that she had probably treated Adlet's wound. Flamey told him that his dagger had merely caused a scratch, but Hans thought she was only covering up for herself. Goldov wondered how they could capture Adlet, so Hans suggested that they lure him into the temple, seeing as his weapons were all intact. However, Flamey thought it would take too long, so Goldov suggested that they go in search for him, and Mora decided to split up the group, but told Hans to remain at the temple. Inside the forest, Nashatanya began telling Goldov that Adlet had been set up by the real mole, and that she wishes to help him. Goldov thought she wasn't thinking straight, but she told him that it was her duty to protect him, as he would have surely protected her. At the same time, Adlet was spying on them from a tree, and thought this was his opportunity to reclaim his weapons, so he headed for the temple. As he arrived, he narrowly dodged a dagger, and soon noticed Hans on the rooftop. He said that he had been expecting him, and immediately drew his daggers, ready for battle. As Adlet drew his sword, he wondered if he was better off escaping before the others arrived. At an instant, Hans jumped down from the roof, so Adlet threw a bomb at his face, but he kicked it away, causing the smoke to erupt. He said that his tricks had gotten old, and Adlet narrowly dodged his attacks, before backing away and throwing needles. Hans continued attacking him relentlessly, eventually kicking him into the wall and dodging his needles. Adlet managed to knock Hans back and followed with a kick, but he swept him to the ground, knocking his sword far away, and was prepared to end him with his blade. As he demanded for his confession, Adlet exploded a bomb in his face and ran away using the distraction. Just then, he bumped into a pillar, and as he fell to the ground, Hans charged at him, but he narrowly dodged his blade and began running deep into the forest. As he stumbled, Hans came flying to end him, but he dodged again and evaded his blade before running off once more. In an instant, he dodged Hans's attacks, but the killer was relentless and jumped to slay him. But he managed to block his dagger before kicking him away. Even so, Hans wouldn't quit, so Adlet cast a smoke bomb and started running off. Before he knew it, Hans stopped him with a kick, and he realized that he could not escape. So he decided to lay down his weapons, and prepared to fight with only a sword. However, Hans thought he had something up his sleeve, but Adlet hoped to prove his innocence. As Hans began wondering what he intends to do, Adlet launched his blade at him, smacking his dagger away. He had deliberately missed his target, and hoped that Hans would realize he did so on purpose. When Hans wondered why he missed, Adlet told him that he spared his life to prove that he wasn't the mole. He told him that he was his comrade, and revealed his crest as a symbol of his honesty. Realizing he may truly be innocent, Hans told him that he would spare his life. However, as Adlet began to think that it was over, Hans revealed that he was actually the mole. At this realization, Adlet tried grabbing a weapon, afraid he was about to die. But he was too late, and Hans slashed his neck open, killing him at that instant. However, he realized it was merely a hallucination, and Hans told him that he had discovered the truth from his face in his final moments. The fear that came onto his face, rather than being shocked at discovering a second mole, was the way Hans determined he was innocent, but had hoped for a reaction that would reveal he was the mole. After a few minutes, they decided to shake hands, agreeing to become comrades. On the other hand, Mora and Flamey arrived at Adlet's shelter and realized that it was empty. Mora wondered where he could be hiding, so Flamey thought he was probably hiding on a tree like Tarazan, and suggested that they keep searching the rest of the forest. However, Mora thought she has no true intentions of finding him, and told her that Adlet was their enemy, and should be killed once he was found. Meanwhile, Nashatanya and Goldov had arrived at the rendezvous point, which was right before the land of howling demons, the spot all the chosen braves were originally supposed to meet. She began saying that Hans was probably the enemy, as she thought he was too useless to be anything other than the villain of this anime. However, Goldov thought that Adlet was surely their enemy, because with his useless face, he couldn't possibly be anything else. Nashatanya thought he was merely jealous and told him to get his shit together. At the temple, Hans began inspecting the walls and thought it was impossible to enter from the roof. However, he thought that someone else must have surely entered before the barrier was activated, and Adlet told him that it was probably one of the others. As he prepared to leave, Hans wondered how the barrier was activated in the first place, since he never actually learned how. At that moment, Adlet realized that only those who were shown the activation sequence would be able to activate the barrier, and thought that Hans and Chamat must surely be innocent. Immediately, he began running out of the temple, hoping to find Chamat. But as she appeared before him, she wondered why Hans had failed to kill him. Hans tried explaining that Adlet was not their real enemy, but Adlet thought he could persuade her even better, and told her that they had nearly discovered the real mole. However, Chamat could care less what he thought, and said that she intends to kill every single one of them until she discovers the enemy. She was certain that she could defeat the demon god on her own, and said that Adlet deserves to be executed first. As she ate her flower, she began vomiting a shitload of slime, and the men wondered how her tiny body could create a fucking swamp. Before their eyes, monsters began emerging from her slimy, sticky liquid, and the girl told them that she has a swamp inside her stomach that brings to life every food she's ever eaten. At her command, the monsters rushed towards the men, and they began running away. As they realized that the forest could not keep the monsters away, Adlet threw an explosive, and they started running to the salt pillars. Even so, the fiends followed them, and they realized that the temple must have recognized them as saints. Tired of running, Hans decided to attack one monster, but it began to regenerate instantly. As Adlet threw an explosive at another, he wondered why Chamat was trying to kill both of them. Chamat told him that every single one of them could be the mole, and thought they were all better off dead. Realizing this deranged kid has no intentions of stopping, Adlet and Hans decided to prepare themselves for a battle. Just then, Chamat began vomiting more slimy liquid, and the fiends surrounded them. As one rushed forward, Hans slayed it and destroyed another, so Adlet began slashing several of them. Before their eyes, they began to regenerate, and Hans realized they were totally hopeless. So Adlet suggested that they knock the girl unconscious and flung a spear at her, but a monster devoured it instantly. As they tried running closer to her, the fiends blocked their way, and Hans thought they were hopeless. As Adlet dodged toxic gas, he slayed a fiend, and told Hans to cover him while he thought of a plan. So the cat man jumped before him, and began destroying all the monsters one after another. And as they backed into each other, Adlet told him to attack the girl, saying that he would distract the monsters at the same time. Hans thought his plan made sense, and began cutting all the fiends to buy him some time. When Adlet was ready, he burned them with fire, and blew a flute to draw the monsters' attention. As Hans rushed past them, he protected him with fire, and flung nails into a monster, allowing him to climb up the pillars and fly towards the girl. However, she spewed disgusting slime that transformed into a fiend, knocking him back. But Adlet kicked him before he hit the ground, and he smacked her, causing her to lose consciousness. At that instant, the fiends began dissolving, and the slime returned into her body. Immediately, they restrained her and successfully gagged her, wondering how they managed to survive her attacks. Inside the temple, Adlet decided to ask the girl if she had always known there was a barrier around the forest, but she revealed that she didn't. Inside the forest, Flamey had sensed the fight at the temple and began hurrying to the site with Mora. However, Adlet had returned to the forest, and Hans told him that Flamey would become their new suspect if he was eliminated. Adlet thought she was surely innocent, and told Hans to uncover the true mole. A few hours later, he arrived at a stream and threw the gunpowder at a tree, causing Flamey to sense his presence. And after a few hours, she appeared before his eyes. As she wondered how he continued to survive like an ugly, disgusting cockroach, he told her that her face was worse than broccoli. At the temple, Mora was angry that Adlet had escaped, and wondered why he had allowed him to leave, so he told her that Adlet was probably innocent, and that he had discovered the mole's plan. At the same time, Adlet revealed that he had figured out the trap, and began saying that the barrier was already activated when he entered the temple. He thought the commander at the fortress was probably responsible, and said that he could be working with the mole to trap them inside. He told him that the barrier could never be activated by the sword, and thought that they were purposely attacked in the forest so they would rush towards the temple, and be trapped in the fog once the doors were opened. However, he was certain that the barrier was only activated by the mole during their attempts to clear the fog. And with this perfect plan in place, the mole had merely blamed the ugliest guy in the room and forced him to take responsibility for it. Flamey told him that Hans had first accused him, and she thought he was probably the fake after all. On the other hand, Nashatanya and Goldov were at the far side of the forest, and she told him that Hans was probably the mole. She said that he had discovered she was a princess even before she revealed herself, and thought he was certainly not a nobody. Goldov thought he was mysterious, and wondered how he discovered her, seeing as the princess was never revealed to everyone. At the same time, Flamey wondered why Adlet was certain that Hans was not the fake. He told her that Hans had spared his life during their battle, but she thought he was a skinny-ass moron for trusting everyone. Adlet thought a saint must have created the fog, but Flamey told him that no saint has the power to create such a mighty fog within a few seconds, as there was a limit to the power of each saint. To prove her words, Flamey summoned gunpowder and threw it on the ground, causing it to explode. As they spotted several stakes in the ground, she revealed that the stakes gave the phantasmal barrier its power to keep the fiends away, and that they were buried all across the forest to spread the fog instantly. Adlet thought a different barrier was probably set up somewhere, but she told him that two barriers could not exist in the forest. She thought he had discovered nothing, and told him to put on his thinking cap. Meanwhile at the temple, as Mora tried heading out to find Adlet, Hans stopped her, saying that Adlet was being framed by the real mole. However, Mora was convinced that Adlet was surely the bad guy, and said that he intends to turn them against each other. She thought he was better off dead, and said that she would annihilate him once she finds him. And in the forest, Flamey told Adlet that he was practically hopeless at this point, and began summoning another gunpowder so he could isekai himself. However, she soon noticed that he was unfazed, and he told her that he would never surrender. He was certain that his death would not be the end, and told her that she would be framed if he was executed. However, he thought she would be safe if he stayed alive, and told her that he would protect her forever. Touched by his words, she told him to stay by her side, hoping to know everything about him. But in an instant, she aimed her gun at him, wondering why he decided to protect her from the very start, and had never even considered her the mole. She thought he has ulterior motives, and threatened to kill him if he told any lies. With his life on the line, Adlet began telling her that he never considered her his enemy, and had always thought he was her protector. Ever since the first time he saw her beautiful face, he knew he has always loved her, and decided to protect her because she was his soulmate. However, Flamey thought she couldn't belong to anyone, and told him that she would be alone once the demon god was slain. Having been cast out of her own land, and renowned as the brave killer in the human world, she thought the best possible thing to do was to hug the ground once the demon god was killed. Adlet tried saying that he would protect her, but she told him that he was the most moronic dude she has ever met. And as she realized that he was totally full of shit, she fired her gun, but he luckily dodged the bullet. As she summoned more gunpowder, she said that he was certainly her enemy, and fired again. At the same time, the others heard the noises, and Hans realized that Adlet must have failed his attempt to win Flamey over to his side. As Mara returned Chamot's flower, she told her to keep an eye on Hans so he wouldn't head off to the forest. Just then, she activated her powers, summoning the god of the mountains, and magical cubes surrounded her, equipping her with armor. As she took a step, a mighty wind blew around her, and with the powerful echoes of the mountain god, she began screaming across the forest, saying that Adlet had annihilated Hans, and that he was the mole and deserves to be killed. As she commanded him to be eliminated, Hans thought she had certainly lost her mind, but she told him that she only cares to see him dead. As a fiend wrapped his hand, he jumped away instantly, and realized that Chamot had summoned her monsters. However, Mora commanded her to spare his life, and Hans realized that Mora was probably the mole. At the same time, Adlet was trying to escape from Flamey, and decided to reveal his crest, proving that Hans was still alive. Even so, Flamey could care less, and fired at him again, saying that she would never believe a single word from his filthy mouth. On the other side of the forest, Nashatanya believed every single word Mora had said, and thought that Adlet had really tricked them all. As her anger grew, she summoned several swords, and sliced the trees around her, ready to annihilate him. Meanwhile, Adlet was trying to win Flamey over, but she cast a ball towards the sky, and it exploded into a great light that caught everyone's attention. As Adlet began running again, Flamey pursued him and nearly blasted his face off. Before he knew it, she threw an explosive before him, and he jumped high to avoid the explosion. At that instant, the tree began to fall, so he jumped away at once and managed to pierce an explosive. And as it exploded, he hurled needles into the smoke before rolling over the ground. When the smoke cleared, he realized that Flamey was wounded, but she wondered why he wouldn't get his face out of her sight. He told her to believe in him, but she said his filthy teeth deserved to be knocked out for being a useless, disgusting liar. She said that she could never trust anyone, and deserves to live alone forever. Adlet thought he could save her from herself, and began running to her, but she threw explosives at him, sending him stumbling all the way back until he slammed into a rock. Before he knew it, Mora appeared to finish him off, but she punched the ground before him. Determined to kill him, she told Flamey to cover for her, and nearly bashed Adlet into the ground. But as he dodged, he continued running away. As Mora missed him once more, he threw his slimy liquid in her face, and ignited her instantly. But she destroyed it with a punch. Before she knew it, a smoke screen erupted, and they thought he had escaped. However, Flamey spotted him right before her eyes, and Mora rushed to end him, but she stopped her with a shot. With Mora confused, Flamey revealed that Adlet was surrendering, and he threw his sword away before going down on his knees. Angered by the sight of his useless face, Mora asked for his confession, but Adlet told her that he was not the mole. As he revealed a device, he said that it could trace monsters, and sprayed the substance on Flamey's bullet. At that moment, it glowed red, and Adlet revealed that it was a sign to prove Flamey was truly half-fiend. He had sprayed the substance on the temple's altar in hopes of discovering Flamey's presence on the dais, but realized that she was never close to the spot. He said that Flamey was also innocent, and hoped she would not be framed the same way that he was. His words penetrated deep inside Flamey's soul, and she realized he had truly meant every word he said. However, Mora thought he deserves to die anyway, and prepared to isekai him for good, but Flamey shot at her armor. With Mora in shock, Flamey began saying that Adlet had touched deep inside her soul, and that he has finally earned her trust. Mora thought she could finish him off before she regained her composure, but Flamey shot a smoke screen, allowing Adlet to escape. As he pulled her along, Mora summoned the power of the mountains, causing several logs to rain on them, but they managed to evade them all. Before they knew it, blades sliced Adlet's face, and he narrowly dodged a rain of spears. As Nashitania appeared before his eyes, Adlet wondered if she had lost her mind, but she told him that she had come to kill him. Flamey tried telling her that Adlet was innocent, but she said that he had run out of luck. Realizing they couldn't possibly change her mind, Adlet told Flamey that he would head for the temple immediately, hoping to prove that Hans was still alive. At that instant, Nashitania launched several spears at them. As Adlet tried drawing his sword, Flamey activated her magic, repelling all the spears, and they began falling to the ground. Nashitania decided to try a new attack, and summoned a wall of spikes, but Adlet managed to roll away, and Flamey cast explosives to destroy them. As she fired a shot that was deflected, she fired another, sending Goldov a few inches back. Luckily, he was not wounded, and he prepared to end her, but Adlet rescued her just in time. Nashitania tried utilizing his distraction, but Flamey protected him instantly. As Mora tried screaming at her to eliminate Adlet, Flamey pushed her to the dirt, determined to protect him, and threw explosives at them. One after another, they exploded, creating a great smoke around the forest. Goldov wondered why Flamey was protecting Adlet, so Mora told him that she has been brainwashed. As Goldov tried sneaking through the smoke, Flamey sent him back with a blast. Realizing their chance, Flamey told Adlet to head for the temple, so he ran off immediately. But Nashitania pursued him. As Goldov tried rushing to her, Flamey blasted him, but Mora utilized her distraction and punched her away. On the other hand, Adlet was running to the temple, hoping that Hans would convince Nashitania to cease her attacks. As he arrived, he began screaming for Hans, but realized that the temple was empty. Just then, spears began flying at him, but he managed to evade them and cast a smoke screen for distraction. As Nashitania appeared in the pillars, Adlet jumped into the bushes, but she ran after him. Inside the forest, Adlet dodged several blades, but was slit in the thighs. With Nashitania running towards him, he hurled needles at her, but she blocked with her shields and launched several spears at him. Adlet managed to jump high and evaded the spears as they returned, before striking them away, but was grazed by the last and stumbled off. Just then, Nashitania appeared before his eyes, wondering if he was ready to meet his end. Adlet tried telling her that Mora was a fat-ass liar, and that Hans was still alive, but she told him to die in peace. As she tried to stab him, he shielded with his hand and tossed her over, snapping the dagger in half and throwing her to the ground before kicking her useless face. At that moment, Goldov arrived, but Adlet hurried away. As he grew weak from losing a lot of blood, he started dumping his weapons to ease his weight. Just then, Goldoff came charging at him, but Adlet blocked his attack until eventually collapsing from his weight. So with a mighty swing, Goldoff smacked him far away to a corpse, crushing all of his bones and destroying all of his energy. As Mora arrived, she told Goldoff to eliminate him, but he wondered why she wanted it done immediately. At that moment, Tiamat and Hans appeared in the distance, and Hans revealed that they had been searching for everyone. Hearing these words, Nashitania realized they had been misled by Mora, so Mora decided to apologize for the trouble. Even so, she was convinced that Adlet was the fake, and told them that he looks too ugly to be anything else.
You're a victim!
However, Adlet thought he could prove that he was innocent, and said that he purposely led them here so that he would reveal the whole truth. As he began saying that the real barrier was only activated after he entered the temple, Mora tried saying that it was impossible, but he told her to shut her ugly ass mouth. He said that the first fog was a fake barrier, and that it only appeared because the temperature in the forest had drastically dropped. However, Mora was determined to remain his antagonist, and said that even the Saints of Ice and Snow could not drop the temperature without first creating a barrier. Adlet thought she was extremely moronic after all, and revealed that the temperature was raised by the Saint of the Sun. For months, she had mysteriously vanished, but Adlet thought she was abducted by the fiends, and was forced to raise the temperature using the power of the sun god. On top of that, he had noticed that the forest was hotter than an oven when they first arrived, and he thought the soldiers at the fortress were working with the mole. As if that was not enough, they had revealed a false method for activating the barrier, and had lured them to the temple using the fiends. And just as he opened the door, the monster had given off a signal to eliminate the Saint of the Sun. And with the saint dead, the sun's power had vanished, and the temperature dropped instantly, creating the fog all around the forest. However, this was not the real barrier like they thought, and Adlet revealed that the mole had activated the real barrier amidst their confusion, making Adlet take the blame. Mora tried saying that he was only making it up, but Adlet revealed that the mole must have hidden the Saint of the Sun close to them, and Hans began searching around the dead monsters. Just then, he told them that he had found the body. As he cut it open, he pulled out the corpse, and Mora discovered that it was truly the Saint. However, she was still certain that Adlet was the fake, and began saying that he prepared everything in advance. But Flamey wasn't buying her shit, and told her to admit her wrongs for the first time in her useless life. So realizing she had no one's support, she finally agreed that Adlet was not the fake after all. However, with their only suspect now proven innocent, she wondered who was truly the mole. In an instant, they all turned their attention to her, and Nashitania told Goldoff to stop her from escaping. Mora tried saying that she was not the mole, but Nashitania revealed that she was their only suspect. As Adlet began to wonder who the mole really was, Tiamat told them that Mora was certainly not the one, and revealed 2 stone tablets her monsters found hidden in the ground. She said that she broke through the temple's floor and found the tablets and a sword inside. Hans said that the sword and 1 tablet were a replica of the ones inside the temple which were used in activating the barrier. When Adlet wondered why there were 2 tablets, Hans revealed that the second one contained instructions for activating and deactivating the barrier. He said that for the barrier to be activated in the first place, one of the braves must spill their blood on the altar and destroy the tablet with the sword. This was the true method for activating it, and they began to wonder who destroyed the tablet on the dais. At that moment, Adlet realized that Nashitania had said the activation spell, and had broken the tablet after he dripped his body paint on the altar. At that instant, they all realized that Nashitania was actually the fake. However, Goldoff hurried to protect her, and Nashitania tried saying that she had no idea what she was doing. Just then, Adlet began to remember every single thing that happened during their travels to the temple, and realized that Nashitania had purposely sent him off so he would be framed. As she realized it was over for her, she decided to surrender, and confessed that she was truly the mole. She said that she had considered Adlet the greatest moron the world has ever seen, and decided to make him her first victim, thinking it would be easier to eliminate him. However, she was impressed that he managed to discover the truth, and thought he wasn't so moronic after all. Tiamat wondered why she intended to kill them all, so she began saying that she wants a new world where the fiends and humans could live in peace. However, she thought this could only be possible if all the braves were eliminated, so that the demon god could rule their world. Hans thought she must have lost her mind, and Flamey wondered how many humans she was willing to sacrifice, so she revealed that she was willing to eliminate half of the planet. Her words shocked them all, and Adlet realized that this bitch should never be allowed to walk free, so he told them to execute her. At the same time, they rushed to end her, but she dissolved into mud, and her soul vanished before their eyes. However, they thought she was still alive, and Hans pursued her into the forest. Just then, Adlet passed out from exhaustion, so Flamey began to treat his wound. After a few hours, he woke up in the temple and realized that he was already patched up with herbs from the mountains. Wrecked by her guilt, Mora decided to apologize for attacking him, but Adlet told her to shove it up her ass. As he noticed Hans, he told him that the barrier had been removed, and that Nashatanya had escaped. After a moment, Adlet arrived outside the temple and discovered that Goldov was still devastated by Nashatanya's betrayal. Shortly, he joined Flamey in the forest as she tried having some alone time. As he wondered if she would stay with the group, she told him that she has decided to remain with them, and that his presence makes her wish that she could live forever. Adlet thought this was all the news he needed to hear, and was certain that they would win their battle against the demon god. However, just as the group reunited, an ugly, worthless girl hurried to them and started apologizing for arriving late. Adlet discovered that she was Rolonia, an old friend, and she told them that she was the Saint of Blood. When Mora wondered why she had come, she said that she was one of the chosen braves, but was stuck outside the barrier for days. Shocked by her words, Mora demanded to see her crest, so the girl flashed her plot before them, and they wondered how the fuck there was another fake in the group. That same day, a king arrived with his royal guard, saying that an army of fiends were heading towards the forest to stop them from reaching the demon god. As Rolonia suggested that they retreat, Hans began to wonder if she was the new mole, and Flamey was ready to annihilate her. However, Adlet told the king to restore the barrier, saying that they wouldn't leave until the demon god was slain. So they started running towards the land of howling demons, and as the fog was released once more, they finally arrived on the island, and were ready for the new battle. Watch this next video. Till next time, my fellow legendary plot masters.